think January is the gardener's ultimate downtime? A month for sipping tea, flipping through catalogues, and catching up on rest. But what if I told you that these cold, snowy days are exactly when you make the most fatal mistakes that will curse you with a pitiful harvest come summer? Sounds dramatic? Maybe. But today we're going to prove that January isn't the dead season. It's the strategic staging ground for your garden's future triumph. We haven't just prepared a few tips. We've put together a complete, exhaustive checklist of 30 must-do tasks for your garden, specifically in January. Watch this video until the end, and you'll unlock the secrets that will transform your winter garden from a high-risk zone into an area of guaranteed success. Ready to revolutionize the way you think about winter gardening? Let's dive in. Before we plunge into this massive list of tasks, let's establish one simple yet critically important truth. Most gardeners, beginners and veterans alike, treat winter like a vacation. Nature sleeps, so we sleep. But the reality is that hidden processes are constantly unfolding beneath the blanket of snow. Plant roots are battling the deep freeze, branches are struggling under the weight of snow and icy wind, and pests and diseases haven't disappeared. They're just patiently waiting for their moment. Garden work in January isn't about active cultivation. It's more like special forces operations. It's quiet, surgical, and incredibly effective. This is the art of prevention. Instead of heroically fighting the fallout of winter negligence in the spring, we can use January to calmly lay such a solid foundation that our plants can handle most issues on their own. Remember this, a garden cared for in January enters spring strong, healthy, and ready for explosive growth. So the number one, most crucial and foundational task in any snowy region is snow retention, or as many call it, snow banking. It sounds deceptively simple, like child's play, but it's actually a core horticultural technique that directly impacts the survival and future fruiting potential of your plants. Why is this so critical specifically in January? January is the peak of winter cold, a time when harsh frosts can strike with particular intensity, often when there's little natural snow cover early in the month. Snow is nature's best insulating blanket. Every single centimetre of snow cover raises the soil surface temperature by roughly 1 degree Celsius. A layer of 50 to 60 centimetres can maintain the temperature at the root crown of fruit trees at around -5 to -7 degrees Celsius, even if the outdoor temperature is a bone-chilling -30. Without this crucial protection, the roots, especially those of young saplings and more tender heat-loving varieties like sweet cherries or apricots, can simply freeze solid. Your primary task is to help nature create this essential blanket. How do you do this properly? Don't just haphazardly shovel snow into messy piles. The most effective method is to bank the snow directly onto the base of trees and shrubs, covering the area known as the root circle, creating a drift up to 1 metre high. This is especially vital for young trees planted the previous fall. You must also cover beds containing fall-sown crops, garlic and onion plantings, as well as your strawberry and ground berry patches. For these low-growing crops, a layer of 30 to 40 centimetres offers reliable protection. What is the common mistake made here? People often take snow from pathways or between rows, completely exposing the soil underneath. This is absolutely forbidden. Exposed ground freezes much deeper, harming the essential soil microflora and potentially damaging roots that extend far beyond the tree canopy. You should gather snow from areas where it's abundant and where its absence won't cause damage, for example, from open spaces or unused areas of your property. Professional tip: once you have created your protective snow mound, lightly compact the top layer with a shovel. This creates a dense, icy crust that slows down melting in the spring, allowing moisture to gradually penetrate the soil rather than simply running off in streams. By doing this, you solve two problems at once. You protect your plants from deadly frost during the deep winter and ensure they receive vital moisture at the very start of the growing season. This simple action, performed correctly in January, directly translates into the health of your entire garden and the abundance of your future harvest. Let's move on to our second, equally crucial task, protecting the garden from hungry rodents. If you assume mice and rabbits are tucked away hibernating, think again. January, with its scarce food supply, is actually the peak time for their destructive activity in our gardens. These hungry creatures can cause irreparable damage, especially to young trees. Rabbits chew the bark off the main trunks, while voles tunnel under the snow and chew the bark right around the root collar, often circling the entire trunk. This ring-like damage, known as girdling, almost always kills the tree. That's why a January inspection and reinforcing your defences isn't overkill. It's a matter of life and death for your saplings. So, what exactly needs to be done? First, check all the protective wraps and guards you installed on the trunks last autumn. Make sure they are secured tightly, haven't slipped down, and haven't been damaged by wind or snow. If you used mesh fencing or hardware cloth, ensure snow hasn't packed in underneath, which could create a cosy shelter for mice. If you don't have wraps, it's not too late to install them in January, especially during a thaw. For this, use specialised plastic mesh guards, roofing felt, or even old nylon stockings wrapped in several layers. The critical thing is that the material must be breathable. Second, you need to regularly compact the snow around the tree trunks. This creates a dense, icy barrier that prevents mice from tunnelling under the snow to reach that tasty bark. Do this after every heavy snowfall. The compaction radius should be at least 3 feet from the trunk. This is a simple, old school, but incredibly effective method. What's a typical mistake here? Indiscriminately using toxic bait. This is dangerous for pets, birds, and the beneficial predators that naturally hunt these rodents. It's much safer to use repellents. For example, hang rags soaked in birch tar or creolin on the lower branches. Their sharp scent repels both rabbits and mice. You should refresh the soaking every 2 to 3 weeks. A professional tip: don't discard the thorny cuttings after pruning shrubs like gooseberries or roses. Lay these branches around your young saplings. This creates a mechanical barrier that rodents will generally prefer to avoid. Remember, one damaged tree means losing years of hard work, all because of a hungry rabbit. January vigilance will save your future orchard. Item number 3 in our January checklist is inspecting and checking the winter coverings for our perennials and more tender plants. Roses, hydrangeas, clematis, grapes, and young conifers. They're all waiting for spring snug beneath the winter structures we carefully built last fall. But winter isn't a static season. Strong winds, freezing rain, heavy snow, and thaws can compromise the integrity of these covers, undoing all our hard work from autumn. Why is this inspection crucial right now, in the middle of winter? January often brings the trickiest, most insidious weather events. Strong winds can rip the protective fabric, leaving the plant vulnerable to deep frost. Heavy wet snow can crush the frame, breaking the branches beneath. And a January thaw followed by a sudden deep freeze can create an icy shell inside the covering. This environment often leads to rot, moisture damage, and ultimately, plant death. Your job is to be the proactive inspector of your garden. What's the action plan? On a windless day, walk around and check every covered plant. Verify the integrity of the covering material. If you find tears, patch them immediately, perhaps with strong, wide tape, or by securing the edges with weighted boards. Make sure the cover is securely anchored so the wind can't lift it. If the frame is sagging under the weight of snow, gently brush the excess accumulation off. The most common mistake gardeners make is completely sealing up their plants. In the pursuit of total frost protection, many forget about ventilation. This causes condensation build-up, which encourages fungal diseases and leads to rot. During mild spells, when the temperature rises above freezing, it is absolutely essential to vent the coverings. Create a small opening at the base, or momentarily lift the edge of the material for a few hours. This allows excess moisture to escape and prevents the plant from suffocating. Pro tip: if you notice an ice crust has formed inside the structure, do not try to break it up. You could damage dormant buds. Instead, gently pile a new layer of loose snow on top of the covering. This acts like a thermal insulator and, during the next thaw, helps the ice melt away more gradually and gently. Regular inspection of your plant coverings in January is like a doctor visiting a patient. You spot the problem in time and take corrective action, ensuring your green friends have a comfortable and safe winter dormancy. The fourth critical task that demands your attention after a major snowfall is clearing the snow from the branches of your trees and shrubs. While snow is generally a blessing, we just discussed its benefits as insulation. Remember that, like any medicine, too large a dose can be toxic. The real danger lies in wet, sticky snow, which accumulates on branches in massive, heavy loads. Why is this critical? The sheer weight of this snow can easily snap branches, particularly on young trees with softer wood or delicate evergreens. Losing a major structural limb on a fruit tree is a severe trauma. It disrupts the canopy's balance, provides easy entry points for disease and infection, and can set back fruit production by several years. For ornamental plants, heavy snow is public enemy number one, especially for upright varieties like arborvitae and junipers. It splays the canopy open, bending the limbs severely. By spring, these branches often fail to return to their original vertical position, meaning the plant has permanently lost its desired aesthetic shape. How do you perform this procedure correctly? The golden rule is gentle action, avoiding any zealotry or excessive force. You absolutely should not shake the tree trunk aggressively. Doing so can cause unseen microcracks in the bark near the base. Use a long pole that has been padded or wrapped with a soft material, like a towel or cloth, to ensure you don't damage the bark. Stand at a safe distance and use light tapping movements, working from the underside of the branch to dislodge the snow. Always start with the lower tiers and progressively move upward. This method ensures that snow falling from upper branches won't simply reload the ones you've just cleaned below. The biggest mistake people make is attempting to tackle ice crusts that form after a thaw and subsequent deep freeze. If the branches are encased in ice, leave them be. Attempting to chip off the ice guarantees a 99% chance of damaging the bark and the dormant buds beneath. Instead, your best option is to provide temporary support, placing props beneath the most heavily laden branches to take the weight off. Here's a pro tip. For columnar and pyramidal evergreens, the best preventative measure is tying the branches together in the autumn. If you skip that step, even in January, choose a warm, calm day and carefully use soft twine or specialised plant ties to draw the branches closer. This compacts the shape and prevents heavy snow build-up deep within the canopy. Timely intervention, freeing your plants from the heavy grip of snow, is a simple task that ensures the long-term health and beauty of your garden for years to come. The fifth item on our agenda is one of the most enjoyable and creative: planning your planting layout for the upcoming season. January, with its long evenings, offers the perfect, unhurried opportunity to decide what, where, and how everything will grow in your plot. Why should you do this now instead of waiting until May, standing there with seedlings in hand? First, smart planning is essential for successful crop rotation. You need to remember what grew in each bed last year so you don't plant the same crop, or its relatives, in the identical spot. This is the simplest and most effective way to prevent soil-borne pests and diseases from building up, and to avoid one-sided soil depletion. For example, you should never follow potatoes with tomatoes or cabbage with radishes. Second, planning helps you optimize your space. You can map out mixed and intensive planting schemes where companion plants help each other thrive. For instance, planting carrots and onions together helps deter each other's pests. Basil is known to enhance the flavour of tomatoes, and tall crops can provide crucial shade for those sensitive to scorching sunlight. Third, it saves you both time and money. With a clear map in hand, you'll only buy the exact amount of seeds you need, avoiding those impulsive purchases. Plus, in the spring, you won't be scrambling around the garden trying to figure out where to cram that extra zucchini plant. How should you approach this process? Grab a large sheet of paper or use specialised gardening software. Draw a scale map of your plot. Mark all the permanent structures, the house, greenhouse, trees, and pathways. Next, draw in the location of your beds. Label each bed clearly with what grew there last year. Then, start creating. Allocate crops to the beds based on their specific requirements for light, moisture, soil type, and of course, crop rotation rules. A common mistake is ignoring the height and structure of the plants. If you place tall tomato varieties at the front of a south-facing bed, you'll doom all the shorter crops behind them to light starvation. Always position the tallest plants on the north side of your beds. Professional advice: create a plant file or index card system for your crops. For every plant you plan to grow, make a card noting the variety, sowing dates, spacing requirements, preferred companions and predecessors, and specific care needs. This will not only aid your current planning, but will also become your personalised gardening journal, building valuable knowledge year after year. January planning is a meditative process. It turns chaos into structure and serves as the very first step toward creating the garden of your dreams. Once your planting plan is set, we move on to the sixth and highly practical step, taking a full seed inventory. Think of this as your gardening bookkeeping. It's essential, and it will save you from major disappointment and wasted money come springtime. Why is January the perfect time to audit your seed supply? Simple. The shopping season is about to begin. Without a precise list of what you own, you risk buying duplicates, or worse, forgetting to purchase something crucial. Plus, seeds expire. Planting expired seeds is a surefire way to waste your time, effort, and valuable garden space. So, what exactly do we do? Pull out every single packet you've collected over the years. Then, organise them by crop: tomatoes with tomatoes, cucumbers with cucumbers, and so on. Once they're grouped, it's time to sort each pile. Start by checking the expiration date printed on the packet. Put all expired seeds into a separate toss pile. Don't throw them out yet. We'll discuss testing those in a later step. Next, from the usable seeds, select the exact varieties you intend to plant this year, referencing your master plan. Create one list, detailing what you have sufficient quantity of. Then make a second list: what I need to buy. This buy list should include any new hybrids you want to try, or tried and true varieties whose stock is critically low. The single biggest mistake people make is storing seeds improperly. If your packets have been sitting in a damp, cold shed, or baking on a shelf next to a heat source, their viability may have plummeted, even if the date stamped on the packet is still good. Ideal storage conditions are a dry, dark, cool place with a stable temperature, such as a drawer in a dresser or a closed box, kept inside a main living area. Pro tip: set up an easy-to-use storage system. Try a photo album with transparent sleeves, a dedicated divided container organizer, or even just labelled envelopes grouped by vegetable type. On every packet, especially opened ones, write down the year you bought it. This small detail will be hugely helpful for future organisation. A careful January audit transforms your messy collection into an organised seed bank, forming the perfect foundation for smart, economical shopping. Point 7 logically follows from the previous one, and it addresses that dreaded pile of seeds, the ones that are expired or about to expire. We are talking about checking seed viability, or germination testing. This is the simplest horticultural experiment you can run right on your windowsill in January, and it will save you a ton of stress and resources come springtime. Why bother? Picture this. It's May. You sow your favourite pepper seeds in the greenhouse. You wait a week, then a second week, and nothing sprouts. You've wasted precious time, and it might already be too late to start over. Testing for germination in January gives you a definitive answer. Should you even use these seeds, or is it time to toss them into the compost bin? This is especially crucial for quick spoilers like cucurbits, cucumbers and squash, which rapidly lose viability, as well as any seeds you've harvested yourself. How do you run the test? There are a few easy methods. The most visual and popular one is the paper towel roll method. Take a strip of toilet paper or a sturdy paper towel and lay it down on a piece of plastic wrap. Dampen the paper thoroughly using a spray bottle. Lay your seeds out in a single row, slightly offset from the edge. 10 seeds are usually enough for this test. It makes calculating the germination percentage super easy. Carefully roll everything up, secure it with a rubber band, and place the roll upright in a glass with just a little water at the bottom. Cover the glass with a plastic bag to create a mini greenhouse and put it somewhere warm. After a few days, the exact time depends on the specific plant, you'll see, or won't see, those little sprouts breaking through. If 8 out of 10 seeds sprout, that's 80% germination, which is a fantastic result. If you get 5, that's 50%. You can still sow them, but you'll need to sow them more densely. If you get fewer than 3, toss the entire batch without hesitation. What are the common mistakes here? Only testing one seed batch. If you have several packets of the same variety from different years, test each one individually. Another critical error is forgetting to label your rolls. Be sure to attach a tag with the crop name and the date you started the test. A professional tip: for notoriously slow sprouting seeds like peppers, eggplant or celery, soak them in a growth stimulant solution, such as a liquid kelp or seaweed extract, according to the instructions before starting the roll test. This won't just speed up germination, it will give you a much more objective picture of their true potential. This January germination check is your insurance policy against spring failures and guarantees that only the strongest, most viable seeds make it into your garden beds. Armed with our planting plan and the results of the seed inventory, we move on to step 8, creating a detailed shopping list. Now, this might seem minor, but this list, put together in the quiet calm of January, will be your greatest ally against the marketing ploys of garden centres and those dreaded impulse buys. Why is this crucial to do ahead of time? Come spring, when gardening fever hits, stores are flooded with colourful packaging. Resisting the temptation to buy just one more beautiful flower or the super new cucumber hybrid is nearly impossible. The result is usually a cart full of things you don't need, and often you forget something truly essential. A list compiled in advance provides discipline and keeps you focused solely on your garden's actual needs. So how do you put it together correctly? Divide your list into several key categories. The first, and most critical, is seeds. This section includes everything you noted as needing replenishment after your inventory check. Don't just write tomatoes. Specify the exact variety or hybrid you require. The second category is fertilizers and supplements. Think about what you'll need throughout the season. Seedling starter mix, nitrogen-based fertilizers for early spring growth, like urea, potassium, phosphorus blends for flowering and fruiting, and any organic feeds. Third, plant protection. Check your current stock of fungicides for diseases and insecticides for pests. It might also be worth investing in some bio-based products, which are safer for the environment. Fourth, tools and supplies. Do you need a new pair of pruners, fresh gloves, row covers, seedling trays, labelling stakes, or tying twine? Mentally walk through your entire gardening cycle and jot down every minor item. A common mistake is creating a list that is too vague. Writing "buy fertilizer" tells you nothing. Instead, you need specifics. Urea, 1 kilogram, potassium sulfate, 500 grams, liquid humic acid for seedlings, 1 bottle. The more concrete and detailed your list is, the lower the chance of making purchasing mistakes. A professional tip: before heading out, research prices and inventory online. Many retailers and specialised garden sites offer a wider selection and better pricing, especially during the off-season. You can easily compare deals, read reviews on specific varieties or products, and place an order without leaving the house. This approach not only saves money, but also ensures you aren't buying a pig in a poke. This January shopping list is your financial and horticultural roadmap for the entire upcoming season. The 9th item on our checklist is the actual purchasing process, getting everything on that meticulously prepared list. And January and February are truly the perfect time to do it. Why shouldn't you put off your shopping until spring? There are several compelling reasons. First, the selection. Early in the year is when garden centres and online retailers receive their freshest shipments of seeds, including rare and highly sought-after varieties that are often completely sold out by April. If you're looking for something specific, now is the time to act. Second, the pricing. Winter is traditionally the season for sales and promotions. Many stores are looking to clear out last year's inventory, soils, fertilizers and tools, and entice shoppers for the new season. You can save a significant amount of money by taking advantage of these deals. Third, peace and quiet. In January, you avoid the massive spring crowds. You can take your time browsing, selecting items, reading the package information, and consulting with staff without standing in long lines. Online ordering also avoids the peak processing load, meaning your order will be handled and shipped much faster. What should you look for when shopping? When selecting seeds, always check the expiration date and ensure the packaging is intact. Stick to reputable growers whose seeds have performed well in your specific climate or region before. When buying potting mixes, fertilizers, and pest controls, read the composition and intended use carefully. Do not buy a single general-purpose soil for everything. Seedlings need a light, airy substrate, while conifers require an acidic mix. The biggest mistake is buying seeds from unregulated street markets or unknown third-party sellers. The risk is high that you'll end up with poor quality, mislabeled, or diseased material. Saving a few dollars now could cost you your entire harvest later. This also applies to buying bare root stock, which sometimes appears for sale late in the winter. This is a major risk. It's better to wait until spring and purchase plants from a reputable nursery. Pro tip: when purchasing fertilizers and pest controls, pay attention to the hazard classification. Try to select Class 3 and Class 4 of agents. These are the safest for humans and the environment. Better yet, prioritize biological controls, such as phytosporin, trichodermin, or phytoverm, that pose no harm to your garden's ecosystem. Shopping in January is a smart investment in your upcoming season, one made without rush and with maximum benefit. The 10th task we should really start tackling in late January is seed stratification. That word might sound intimidating or overly scientific, but it's actually a straightforward process that mimics natural conditions, a necessary step to wake up certain types of seeds. So what exactly is it, and why do we need to bother? Many plants, particularly perennials, trees and shrubs, like lavender, columbine, primula, evergreens, and many stone fruits, have seeds that possess a built-in defense mechanism against germinating too early in the fall. They won't sprout until they've gone through a period of sustained cold and moisture. In other words, they need to experience winter. Stratification is simply the artificial creation of these precise conditions. If you sow these types of seeds directly into warm soil in the spring without prior preparation, they may fail to germinate entirely, or the seedlings might only appear a full year later. January is the perfect time to begin this process, as it typically takes anywhere from 1 to 3 months. How do you stratify seeds at home? The easiest way is through cold stratification. Take your seeds and mix them with a small amount of damp substrate. Suitable options include sand, vermiculite, peat moss, or even cotton pads. The moisture level should be just right, damp, but not so wet that water drips out when you squeeze it in your fist. Place this mixture into a small zip-top plastic bag or a sealed plastic container. Crucially, label it with the plant name and the date you started the stratification process. Next, place the bag in the refrigerator, ideally in the crisper drawer, where the temperature stays consistently between 35 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit, or 2 to 4 degrees Celsius. That's it. The process has begun. Now all you need to do is periodically check the seeds, once every week or 2. Give them a quick air out and ensure the substrate hasn't dried out and that no mold has started to appear. What is the most common and damaging mistake here? Too much moisture. If the substrate is waterlogged, the seeds are likely to simply rot or become mouldy. It's always better to err on the side of slightly less water than too much. If you do spot mold, gently rinse the seeds in a weak solution of potassium, permanganate or hydrogen peroxide, replace the substrate with a fresh batch and put them back in the fridge. A quick professional tip: some cultures like clematis or peonies require two-stage or warm-cold stratification. This means the seeds are kept warm and moist for a period first, and then they are transferred to the cold. Always check the germination instructions carefully on the seed packet, or research the requirements for your specific plant variety. January stratification is your secret weapon for tricking even the trickiest seeds into germinating, ensuring you get robust seedlings of those rare and beautiful plants. Item number 11 on our checklist: a serious shed overhaul. We're talking about repairing, cleaning and sharpening all your gardening tools and equipment. This is the critical task you never have time for once the season starts humming. But remember, the condition of your tools directly impacts not only how easy your work is, but also the health of your plants. Why tackle this specifically in January? First, you have the luxury of time to do everything thoroughly and without rushing. Second, working with dull, dirty tools is directly harmful to your garden. A dull pair of pruners doesn't cut. It crushes and tears plant tissue, leaving behind ragged, gaping wounds that take longer to heal and act as open invitations for infection. Furthermore, dirty equipment can easily transfer fungal disease spores from one plant to the next. If you start your spring pruning with a non-sterile set of shears, you risk infecting your entire garden. So, what's the plan? Start by taking a full inventory of your arsenal. Pull out all your bypass pruners, loppers, saws, spades, hoes, and rakes. Clean off all the dirt, rust, and plant debris. For the metal parts, a wire brush works wonders for scrubbing off heavy grime. Next, you must disinfect the blades using isopropyl alcohol, chlorhexidine, or any suitable household antiseptic. The next stage is sharpening, and this is crucial. Remember, pruners and loppers should only be sharpened on the single, working bevel, maintaining the factory angle. A dedicated whetstone or sharpening file is best for this. Garden saws also require sharpening and checking that the teeth are properly set. It's also worth honing the edges of your spades and hoes. Digging is infinitely easier with a sharp shovel. Once everything is sharp, lubricate all metallic and moving parts with machine oil or a specialized lubricant to protect against corrosion. While you're at it, check the handles on your spades, rakes and mattocks. If a handle is cracked, replace it immediately. If the wood has simply dried out, soaking the end in water for a few days can sometimes help swell the wood back into shape. A common mistake is neglecting the smaller tools. Hand trowels, cultivators and stakes. They all need cleaning and disinfection too. Also, check the condition of your hoses, nozzles and watering cans. A pro tip: set up a dedicated, efficient workspace for tool maintenance, a vise for steadying items, a selection of files and stones, rags, oil and antiseptic. Regular tool care should become as automatic as washing your hands. Equipment prepared now, in January, is the key to fast, effective and safe work in the garden come spring. The 12th item on our winter checklist is checking the condition of your greenhouse. Your glass or polycarbonate grow house needs attention, even in the dead of winter. Even if you don't plan on using it until spring, a thorough January inspection can prevent serious headaches later. Why is this so crucial? Winter stress, heavy snow loads and strong winds is a major test for any structure. A thick snow cap can cave in the roof, especially on arched polycarbonate models. A powerful gust of wind can tear off a sheet of polycarbonate or shatter glass if the fastenings have become loose. It is far easier and cheaper to detect and fix damage in January than to discover a disaster in the spring when you're rushing to transplant seedlings and your greenhouse isn't ready. What should you check? Roof integrity is first and foremost. Regularly clear snow from the greenhouse roof, particularly after heavy snowfalls. Don't wait until the layer becomes critically heavy. Use a soft bristled brush on a long handle to avoid scratching the polycarbonate. Absolutely do not use metal scrapers. Inspect the greenhouse frame from the inside. Check for any deformations or sagging. Make sure all fasteners are securely in place and tightened. Check the integrity of the covering. If it's polycarbonate, look for cracks. If it's glass, check for chips and fractures. A small crack in polycarbonate can be temporarily sealed with special clear repair tape. Broken glass should be replaced as soon as possible, but in the interim, seal the opening with heavy plastic sheeting. Pausch. The trap to avoid. What is a common mistake here? Clearing snow only from the outside and forgetting what is happening internally. If your area experiences power outages and you rely on heating, the interior of the greenhouse may rise above freezing. The snow on the roof will melt from below, forming a heavy, difficult-to-remove ice crust. You must be extra vigilant in these situations. Vunkels. Pro tip. Bring several buckets of snow inside your greenhouse and spread it evenly over the raised beds. This solves several problems at once. First, the soil inside a greenhouse often becomes extremely dry and loses structure over winter. The resulting meltwater in spring will thoroughly rehydrate it. Second, freezing this moist soil helps eliminate overwintering pests and disease pathogens. It's a form of natural sterilization. Taking care of your greenhouse in January guarantees that it will be in full battle-ready condition this spring. Prepare to welcome your seedlings and young plants. Task number 13 takes us out of the garden and down into the root cellar or basement. We need to conduct a critical inspection of our stored harvest. Potatoes, carrots, beets, cabbage, apples, onions and garlic. All those autumnal treasures you gathered require your attention even now, in January. Why is this critical right now? January marks the midpoint of the storage timeline. This is precisely when hidden diseases, those latent issues that started either in the garden bed or during the harvest, begin to fully manifest. A single rotten potato or apple can contaminate an entire crate in a very short time. Fail to notice and remove these pockets of infection, and you could lose a significant portion of your hard-earned harvest by spring. Furthermore, midwinter often brings fluctuations in storage conditions. Variations in temperature and humidity can trigger root vegetables to either sprout prematurely or dry out and shrivel. So, what action should you take? You need to inspect your stored goods at least once every 2 weeks. Go through your potatoes, discarding any tubers showing signs of rot, greening, or excessive shriveling. Next, check your carrots and beets. If you store them packed in sand, gently push aside the top layer to examine the condition of the roots underneath, removing anything suspicious. Move on to your apples. Immediately discard any fruit showing signs of fruit rot, making sure to remove those infected apples far away from your storage area. Inspect your onions and garlic, taking out any heads that are soft, sprouted, or mouldy. Finally, give attention to your stored cabbage. Peel off and remove any outer leaves that are visibly spoiled or wilted. The most frequent mistake people make is ignoring the microclimate of their storage area. You must regularly monitor the temperature and humidity. The optimal temperature for most root vegetables ranges from +1 to +3 degrees Celsius, with humidity between 85 and 95%. If the cellar is too warm, vegetables will start to sprout. If it's too dry, they will shrivel, and if it's too humid, they will rapidly begin to rot. Be sure to ventilate the space regularly and use a reliable hygrometer and thermometer for constant control. Here is a professional tip. If you notice your potatoes actively starting to sprout, it is a clear sign that the temperature is far too high. But there is a small trick you can use. Place a few apples in the potato bin. Apples naturally release ethylene gas, which acts as a growth inhibitor and helps slow the sprouting process. And for carrots and beets, you can try spraying them with an infusion made from onion skins. It's an excellent natural antiseptic that helps suppress the growth of rot and mould. Paying close attention to your harvest this January will ensure you can enjoy fresh, healthy produce right up until spring arrives. Step number 14 on our preparation checklist is all about getting ready for spring. It's time to start organising your seedling containers. It might seem like sowing is still ages away, but preparing your containers now saves you crucial time during the busy planting season. More importantly, it safeguards your future seedlings from disease. Why tackle this in January? Because old pots, flats and trays used last year can harbour fungal spores, such as those causing damping off, which can wipe out an entire batch of seedlings in just a couple of days. Mineral deposits, salt build-up from previous waterings and fertilisers also cling to the container walls. These deposits can stunt the root growth of tender young plants. That's why every single container you've used before needs mandatory cleaning and disinfection. So, what's the process? Gather all the pots, trays, flats, and smaller cell packs you intend to reuse. First, perform a mechanical cleaning. Use a brush to scrub away residual soil, old roots, and any mineral build-up. Follow this by thoroughly washing them with dish soap or any household detergent. The next and most critical stage is sterilisation. You have a few options. You can soak the containers for several hours in a strong solution of potassium permanganate. It should be dark pink. Alternatively, you can use a solution of copper or iron sulfate, 1 tablespoon per bucket of water. Soaking them in a solution of household bleach or any chlorine-containing disinfectant is highly effective. Use a ratio of 1 part bleach to 10 parts water. However, if you choose this method, you must rinse the containers extremely well with clean water afterward. For those who prefer more environmentally friendly methods, treating them with a solution of phytosporin or another biofungicide is a great choice. Once disinfection is complete, all containers must be thoroughly air-dried. A common mistake is using opaque containers, like old milk cartons, for seedlings. Plant roots also need light for optimal development. Plus, using clear containers allows you to easily monitor the state of the root system and the moisture level of the potting mix. Pro tip: consider using peat pots or pellets. They are the perfect option for crops that dislike transplanting, such as cucumbers, peppers, and eggplants. The plant is set into the garden soil, directly in the peat pot, which completely eliminates root trauma. January is the ideal time to stock up on the necessary supply of these containers without feeling rushed. Preparing a clean, safe nursery for your starts is a demonstration of care that will repay you 100-fold in the form of healthy, robust plants. The 15th task, which goes hand in hand with the previous one, is preparing the potting mix for your seedlings. A high-quality substrate is half the battle when it comes to growing strong, healthy young plants. And January is the perfect time to tackle this job, while you still have plenty of time and don't feel rushed. Why can't you simply use soil from your garden? Field soil is usually too dense. It often contains weed seeds, and most importantly, it harbours disease pathogens and overwintering pest larvae. Using pure garden soil for delicate seedlings is setting them up for failure right from the start. Seedling mix needs to be light, loose, permeable to both air and water, nutritious, but moderately so, and, crucially, sterile. How do you prepare your mix? You have 2 main options: buy a ready-made one or mix your own. If you buy commercial soil, choose products from reputable manufacturers and look for labels like seed starting mix or vegetable growing mix. However, even store-bought mix isn't a 100% guarantee of safety, so it's wise to sterilise it as well. If you decide to compose your own mix, the classic recipe is 1 part garden soil or loam, 1 part peat, 1 part humus or compost, and 1 part sand or vermiculite. Make sure to mix all components thoroughly. Now for the most critical step, sterilisation. The most reliable method is freezing. If you live in a region with a frosty winter, you can simply put the bag of soil out on a balcony or outside for several weeks. Cycles of freezing and thawing are lethal to most pathogens. Another common approach is steaming. Place the soil in a colander, set it over a pot of boiling water, and steam it for about an hour. Alternatively, you can bake the soil in the oven at 195 degrees Fahrenheit, 90 degrees Celsius, for 30 minutes. After any heat treatment, the soil becomes dead. Both the harmful and beneficial microflora are destroyed. Therefore, once the soil cools down, you must revive it. Drench the mix with a solution of biopreparations containing beneficial bacteria, such as Bical EM1 or phytosporin. Cover it with plastic wrap and leave it in a warm place for a couple of weeks. A frequent mistake is adding fresh manure to seedling mix. This is strictly forbidden. It can easily burn the tender roots of young plants. A professional tip: to improve the structure of the soil, add amendments like perlite or vermiculite. They lighten the mix and help to retain moisture. Also, adding a small amount of wood ash will enrich the substrate with potassium, phosphorus, and micronutrients, while serving as a preventative measure against damping off. A soil mix that is properly prepared and matured in January provides the best possible start for your future seedlings. Item 16 on our January calendar is a task reserved for the most dedicated and skilled gardeners: winter fruit tree grafting. This is a delicate, precise operation that allows you to grow multiple varieties on a single tree or propagate a valuable cultivar. Why do we graft in the winter? Winter or bench grafting is performed indoors under comfortable conditions when both the rootstock, what you graft onto, and the scion, what you graft with, are fully dormant. This method ensures an extremely high rate of successful grafts, or take rate. Furthermore, by spring, when you plant them out in the garden, the graft union has plenty of time to heal thoroughly. January and February are the ideal months for this procedure. What supplies do you need? First, the rootstock. These are typically 1 or 2-year-old seedlings, either grown by you or purchased from a nursery. They are dug up in the fall and stored in a cellar or root cellar in moist sand. Second, the scions. These are cuttings of the desired varieties. They are collected early in the winter, after the first hard frosts, and kept dormant in a refrigerator or buried under snow. Before grafting, the rootstocks are brought indoors a few days ahead of time so they can begin to wake up. The scions, conversely, should only be retrieved immediately before you start working. The grafting technique itself requires practice and dexterity. The most common method for winter grafting is the whip and tongue graft. If the rootstock and scion are the same diameter, you make long, slanting cuts on both, and then make small, supplementary longitudinal splits. The tongues. They are then joined so the tongues lock securely together, and the cambium layers, that thin green layer just beneath the bark, are perfectly aligned. The graft site is wrapped tightly with special grafting tape or electrical tape and sealed with tree wax or grafting compound. Once grafted, the young trees are placed in a box with moist sawdust and held at a temperature of around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius, that's 68 to 77 Fahrenheit, for 2 weeks to allow the union to form. After that, they are moved back to a cold storage location until spring planting. A common mistake is using dirty or dull tools. Your grafting knife must be razor sharp and sterile. All cuts should be made with a single smooth motion. Never saw the wood. Any contamination or damage to the cambium can lead to failure. A professional tip: if you are new to grafting, practice first on disposable branches, perhaps from a willow or poplar. Get your technique down and practice making those clean, smooth cuts. And don't be afraid to experiment. Winter grafting is a fascinating process that opens up endless possibilities for creativity in your garden. Topic 17, focusing on winter propagation, is rooting coniferous cuttings. Many evergreens like thuja, junipers, and false cypress root easily from cuttings, and winter is the ideal time to do it. Why winter? When the plants are fully dormant, the cuttings root better because all their energy is directed toward forming roots rather than vegetative growth. Plus, it's easier to maintain the stable humidity and temperature required for successful rooting right on your indoor windowsill. January and February are the perfect months to start. How do you do this? Select a healthy, vigorous mother plant. On a calm or overcast day, carefully take several side shoots. The cuttings shouldn't be cut with shears. Instead, pull them off with a sharp downward motion, ensuring that a small strip of older bark or wood remains at the base. This is called the heel. Roots form most actively right there at the heel. The optimal cutting length is about 4 to 6 inches. Remove all the needles from the lower third of the cutting. Next, refresh the cut on the heel and dip it into a rooting hormone powder, like IBA or standard rooting powder. Prepare a container with a light, loose rooting medium. An ideal mix is equal parts peat moss and sand or perlite. Thoroughly moisten the substrate. Use a small stick or pencil to make holes in the medium. Then insert the cuttings about an inch deep at a slight angle. Gently firm the soil around them. Afterward, cover the container with a clear lid, a glass jar or a plastic bag to create a humid environment, a mini greenhouse. Place this setup in a cool spot with bright, indirect light, maintaining a temperature of approximately 64 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. The biggest mistake at this stage is overwatering. The soil should be consistently damp, not soaking wet. Excess moisture will cause the cuttings to rot. Be sure to ventilate the container daily by removing the cover for 15 to 20 minutes and wipe away any excess condensation. Professional tip: to significantly increase your chances of success, use bottom heat. Placing the container on a dedicated seed-starting heat mat, or even a warm but not hot windowsill above a radiator, will dramatically speed up the rooting process. Rooting conifers takes time. It's not a fast process, often requiring 2 to 4 months, but growing your own thuja or juniper from a small sprig is incredibly rewarding and highly economical. Item number 18 on our January checklist takes us out of the frozen garden and straight into the kitchen, specifically the windowsill. We're talking about forcing greens indoors, when blizzards rage outside and fresh garden produce is still months away. We all crave something fresh, flavourful, and packed with vitamins. January is the perfect time to set up your very own mini garden right on the windowsill. So, what exactly is forcing? It's the process of encouraging a plant, one that already stores nutrients in its root or bulb, to produce new green growth during its dormant period or off-season. It's simple, fast, and virtually free. The classic example is, of course, green onions or scallions. Grab some regular onion bulbs that have already started to sprout. You can place them in a glass of water, making sure only the very bottom touches the water. In about a week, you'll have fresh green shoots. Alternatively, plant them tightly together in a shallow tray filled with a small layer of soil or sawdust. This method yields juicier greens and prevents the bulbs from rotting. Besides onions, forcing works wonderfully with root vegetables like parsley, celery, and beets. If you still have small rootstock left over from the fall harvest, perhaps stored in your cellar or fridge, simply plant them in a pot of soil, water them, and place them on a bright windowsill. Soon they'll produce tender, young foliage perfect for salads. Beet greens, often called Swiss chard or mangold, are every bit as delicious as spinach. What's the common mistake people make here? Trying to grow herbs from seed without supplemental lighting. The days in January are far too short, and the natural light isn't enough for proper photosynthesis. Seedlings started now will stretch, become pale and leggy, and often fail. Forcing, on the other hand, relies on the nutrients already stored in the rootstock, making it much less dependent on light. That said, even when forcing, providing a few hours of supplemental light daily with a grow lamp will drastically improve the quality and speed of your winter harvest. A professional tip: try forcing sorrel. In the fall, dig up a clump of sorrel with its root ball intact, plant it in a pot, and keep it somewhere cold. When January arrives, bring it indoors, start watering, and it will quickly reward you with tangy, sour leaves perfect for traditional green soup. Setting up this little vitamin garden on your windowsill won't just provide you with fresh herbs. It will also boost your spirits and serve as a cheerful reminder that spring is just around the corner. Item 19 is dedicated to our year-round green companions, houseplants. In January, just like their outdoor counterparts, they go through a challenging time. Short daylight hours, dry air from central heating, and window drafts. All of this puts serious stress on them. Our job is to help them survive the winter with minimum stress and loss. Why is January care different? Because most houseplants are actually dormant this time of year. Their growth slows down, and their needs for water and nutrients are significantly reduced. Following a normal summer routine can actually harm them during the winter. The golden rule for winter plant care is moderation in everything. The first thing you need to focus on is watering. The number one killer of houseplants in winter is overwatering. With limited light and heat, roots can't absorb a lot of moisture, so the water just sits in the pot, leading to root rot. Only water your plants after the top inch or 2 to 3 centimetres, of soil has completely dried out. Always use room temperature, dechlorinated or settled water. Second, air humidity. Central heating sucks the moisture out of the air, which is terrible for most plants, especially tropical varieties. Mist them regularly. You can also place trays of water near the pots or invest in a humidifier. Giving your plants a periodic warm shower is also beneficial. It helps wash dust off the leaves. Third, lighting. Try to place your most light-loving plants on south-facing windows. Make sure you regularly clean the glass of dust and grime. If natural light is still insufficient, supplement it with dedicated LED grow lights. Fourth, feeding. Most plants do not need fertilizer in January. The exception is winter bloomers, like Christmas cacti or azaleas. These can be fed once a month using half-strength fertilizer. A critical mistake is repotting. January is the worst possible time for this. Repotting causes significant stress, and a plant already weakened by winter conditions may not recover. It's best to postpone all repotting until spring. Pro tip: regularly inspect your plants for pests. Dry air is the perfect breeding ground for spider mites. If you notice fine webbing or small dots on the leaves, immediately treat the plant with an insecticide. Proper care in January will help your indoor plants maintain their beauty and store up the energy needed for vigorous spring growth. The 20th item on our list might sound a bit old school, but for the smart, thrifty gardener, it's never outdated. We are talking about preparing wood ash. If you have a stove, fireplace, or perhaps a wood-fired sauna, winter is the ideal time to accumulate this invaluable organic fertilizer, a supply that will serve you throughout the entire growing season. Why is wood ash so valuable? It's a true treasure trove of micro and macronutrients, and crucially, they're in a form readily available to plants. You'll find potassium, phosphorus, calcium, magnesium, boron, manganese, and much more. What sets it apart is that unlike many synthetic mineral fertilizers, wood ash contains absolutely no chlorine, an element harmful to sensitive crops like potatoes and berry bushes. The potassium in the ash boosts plant winter hardiness, encourages fruit set, and actually improves the flavour of the final harvest. Phosphorus is vital for robust root development, and the calcium helps neutralise soil acidity, a huge benefit for most vegetable crops that struggle in overly acidic conditions. Additionally, ash has slight antiseptic qualities and can assist you in controlling certain pests and diseases. Now, how do you properly prepare and store the ash? Only ever use ash generated from burning clean, untreated wood and plant residue. It is critically important not to use ash from coal, engineered wood products like particle board, painted or chemically treated lumber, or household trash, as these contain heavy metals and other toxic substances. Once the fire has completely died down, allow the ash to cool fully. Then, sift it through a fine mesh or metal screen to remove any large pieces of charcoal or unburned debris. Ash must be stored in a dry place, ideally in tightly sealed containers, such as plastic totes or metal buckets with lids. If the ash becomes damp or wet, it will leach out a significant amount of potassium, reducing the effectiveness of this valuable component. So, what's the big mistake many gardeners make? using ash indiscriminately on every plant they own. Since ash raises the pH, it is absolutely counterproductive for acid-loving plants like blueberries, rhododendrons, hydrangeas, and most conifers, as the ash will suppress their growth. Here's a professional tip. In the spring, you can mix ash directly into the soil when preparing beds. Use 1 to 2 cups per square metre. Add a tablespoon directly into the planting holes for potatoes and tomatoes. You can also dust it directly onto young cabbage plants to deter flea beetles and slugs, or create an ash infusion for liquid feed and pest control sprays. By taking the time to prepare wood ash this winter, you secure a free, ecologically clean, and highly effective fertiliser supply for the entire growing year. Item 21 is the logical follow-up to procurement and inventory. Once you've created your shopping lists and perhaps even made initial purchases, it's crucial to audit your existing stock of fertilisers and plant protection products. This helps you avoid duplicate purchases and, critically, allows you to get rid of expired or ineffective chemicals. Why is this so important? Most agrochemicals, much like medication, have an expiration date. Once that date passes, they don't just lose their effectiveness, they can become toxic or form harmful compounds. Using expired products in your garden poses a risk to your plants, your health, and the environment. Furthermore, improper storage can easily ruin these supplies even before their expiration date. So, what should you do? First, locate the area where you store all your gardening supplies. It should be dry, dark, cool, and inaccessible to children and pets. 1. Inspect everything. Pull out every package, bottle, and box. Carefully inspect each container. 2. Check expiration dates. Anything past its prime must be ruthlessly set aside for disposal. 3. Verify integrity. Verify the integrity of the packaging. If a bag is torn or a bottle is leaking, it's best not to use that product. 4. Examine contents. Check the contents' consistency and colour. If dry powder has clumped, or if a liquid has changed colour or developed sediment, unless the instructions specify otherwise, that's a clear sign the product has gone bad. 5. Create a new list. Make a list of everything you have in stock and in good condition. Compare this against your necessary purchase list. Chances are you can cross a few items off. Proper disposal. A common mistake is improper disposal. You cannot simply throw expired pesticides in the trash or pour them down the drain. They are hazardous waste. They must be taken to special collection points or disposed of according to local regulations. If a local programme isn't an option, the absolute minimum you must do is dilute the product heavily with water and pour it into a hole far away from water sources, wells, and cultivated plants. Fabric fans. Pro tip. Organisation. Organise your storage system. Get a plastic container with a tightly sealing lid. Separate all products into groups: fungicides, insecticides, herbicides, and fertilisers. Write the purchase date and intended use on every container using a permanent marker. This will help you quickly locate the right product and keep tabs on expiration dates. This January review of your garden medicine cabinet is the key to safe and effective gardening. Item 22 on our list is all about investing in your most valuable asset, you. This means diving into new knowledge, agricultural techniques, and general gardening expertise. January, with its long evenings and lack of urgent tasks in the garden, is the perfect time for self-education and reflection. Why is this so crucial? Because the world of gardening never stands still. Every year brings new varieties and hybrids with unique properties, alongside safer and more effective treatments and innovative growing methods. What was cutting edge 10 years ago might already be outdated today. Continuous learning allows you to keep up with the times, avoid costly mistakes, boost your yields, and ultimately get more joy out of your hobby. Knowledge is just as vital a tool for a gardener as a shovel or a pair of pruners. So, where should you look for this information? The sources are endless. First, look to gardening books and magazines. Both classic texts and fresh new releases are a goldmine of useful information. Second, the internet. There are countless authoritative websites, forums and blogs where fellow gardeners share their experiences. And of course, our own YouTube channel, where you'll find tons of helpful videos. You can watch lectures by renowned agronomists or study the successful practices of other gardeners right in your region. Third, networking and communication. If you know experienced gardeners, don't hesitate to ask questions. Exchanging wisdom is truly priceless. What exactly should you study? The fields are incredibly diverse. You might delve into organic farming and learn how to make perfect compost or vermicompost tea. Perhaps you'd rather explore the principles of permaculture and natural gardening, or you could master new techniques like building raised beds or vertical gardening. Alternatively, just deeply research the specific growing techniques needed for a new crop you plan to plant this season. A common mistake is blindly trusting the first piece of advice you find online. Always try to cross-reference information using multiple sources. What works perfectly for a blogger in a warm, southern state might be completely useless in the climate of the far north. Always account for your specific local conditions. Here's a pro tip. Start a dedicated gardening journal. This can be a simple notebook or a computer file. Record all the interesting ideas and tips you discover. Document your planting plans and throughout the season, track your observations, noting the results of different methods. This diary will become your personal gardening encyclopedia, helping you analyse both your successes and failures. January learning isn't just dry theory. It's a fascinating journey into the world of plants that will make you a much wiser and more successful gardener. This 23rd point might seem a bit premature, but hear me out. We are talking about building, or at the very least, meticulously planning your warm garden beds. A warm bed is truly an agricultural marvel, allowing you to achieve both early and abundant harvests, even when faced with cooler climates. Why should you start thinking about this in January? Simple. A proper warm bed requires a lot of organic material, and winter is actually the perfect time to collect it. Plus, if you live in a milder climate or experience a prolonged thaw, and the ground isn't frozen solid, you might even be able to start the preparatory digging. So, what exactly is a warm bed? Essentially, it's a multi-layered organic cake. As these materials decompose, they generate heat and release essential nutrients, warming and feeding your plant's roots. This mechanism allows you to plant seedlings earlier than usual and harvest weeks ahead of schedule. How do you build one? Typically, you dig a trench about 40 to 50 centimetres deep. That's roughly 16 to 20 inches. The bottom layer is the coarsest material, things like thick branches, wood chips, and old lumber. This serves as essential drainage. Next comes a layer of finer organic matter, spent plant tops, weeds, leaves, and kitchen scraps. Just remember to avoid meat and grease. You can sprinkle each layer with a little soil, or drench it with an effective microorganism solution to speed up decomposition. After that, add a layer of partially broken down compost or aged manure. Finally, the top layer is 20 to 30 centimetres, or about 8 to 12 inches, of rich, fertile garden soil. A crucial mistake to avoid. Never use diseased plants or the aggressive root systems of perennial weeds in these lower layers. In the warmth and humidity, they won't rot. Instead, they will happily sprout and plague you all summer long. Make sure all your plant matter is healthy. Here is the professional tip. If digging a trench is impossible right now, use January to gather your materials. Start stockpiling branches after pruning, collect kitchen scraps, you can freeze them on the balcony, and arrange to get wood ash from neighbours who use a wood-burning stove. Sketch out the exact location on your garden plan where these warm beds will sit. Plan their size and structure. They are often built using wooden frames or boxes. When the snow finally melts in the spring, you'll have everything ready for a rapid start. Warm beds are truly an investment of labour that pays off exponentially with those coveted early cucumbers, zucchini and sun-ripened tomatoes. Item number 24 on our checklist focuses on the evergreen beauties of our garden, the conifers. January, and especially February, brings a particularly dangerous period for these plants, related not to deep frost, but to the sun. We are talking about protecting them from late winter sun scorch, also known as winter burn. Why does this happen during the coldest months? In late winter, the sun begins to shine much brighter. The snow cover reflects the sun's rays, intensifying their effect. The dark needles heat up significantly in the bright sun, triggering photosynthesis and causing moisture to evaporate quickly. However, the roots are still dormant in the frozen ground and cannot supply water to the foliage. The result is desiccation. The needles turn yellow, brown, and eventually die off. That is the definition of sun scorch. Young, newly planted specimens are especially susceptible, along with certain varieties of arbor vitae, thuja, junipers, and Canadian spruce. So what should we do? The most reliable protection is shading. You need to create a screen that shields the plant from direct sunlight, particularly from the southern and southwestern sides. Various materials can be used for this: burlap, dedicated shade cloth, old sheets, or any light-coloured, breathable, non-woven fabric, such as frost cloth or horticultural fleece, will work well. The material can simply be draped over the plant, or, even better, secured to a frame built around it. The frame can be constructed from wooden stakes, posts, or hoops. It is crucial that the covering material does not tightly hug the needles. There must be an air gap between the material and the branches to allow for proper ventilation. You should install these screens in late January or early February, ideally on an overcast day. What is the critical mistake here? Using plastic sheeting or dark, dense material for covering. On a sunny day, plastic film creates a greenhouse effect, causing the plant to rapidly overheat and essentially cook, which is far worse than sun scorch. Dark material will absorb the sun's heat and only worsen the situation. The shading material must be light-coloured and breathable. Pro tip: beyond physical covering, you can also help the plant from the inside out. In the fall, before the first hard freeze, it is critical to give your conifers a deep, soaking, pre-winter hydration. This helps them store moisture and better tolerate winter desiccation. If the fall was dry and you missed this step, then during any winter thaws, you can pour several buckets of lukewarm water around the base of the plant to help the ground thaw slightly and give the roots temporary access to moisture. Protecting your conifers from the sun is a mandatory procedure that will preserve both their health and their magnificent appearance. Let's dedicate point 25 to the lawn, the part of our yard that often gets overlooked in winter. We often think that a thick blanket of snow protects it from harm, but that's simply not true. Poor winter management can cause serious damage to the turf, resulting in bald spots and patches instead of a smooth green carpet come spring. The main rule for winter lawn care is simple: leave it alone. Why is this so crucial? The grass doesn't die under the snow. It's in a state of deep dormancy. If you constantly walk over the same spot on a snowy lawn, the snow compacts and turns into an impenetrable icy crust. Trapped beneath this ice, the grass is starved of air and starts to rot. When spring arrives, this spot will most likely be a noticeable bare patch. The same damage occurs if you shovel snow off your pathways and pile it into large, dense drifts on the lawn. These huge mounds take much longer to melt, causing the turf beneath to rot from prolonged moisture. Creating a skating rink or ice slide on the lawn is also dangerous. The solid ice blocks oxygen access completely, killing the grass underneath. What if you absolutely must cross the lawn? If you don't have permanent paths, lay down temporary walkways using boards. This helps distribute the pressure and protects the grass. Just try to avoid following the exact same track every time. What is the other major winter hazard for your lawn? Snow mold. This fungal disease thrives under the snow when temperatures hover around freezing. In the spring, after the snow melts, you might notice grey or pink patches with a cobweb-like appearance. Preventing this relies heavily on proper fall preparation, including the final cut, aeration, and fungicide treatment. If you skip those steps, you'll be dealing with costly remediation efforts in the spring. Professional tip: during winter thaws, when a dense, icy crust forms on the surface of the snow, it is beneficial to break it up. This icy shell severely inhibits gas exchange. Carefully walk over the lawn using the backside of a rake or a pitchfork to puncture and shatter the crust. This simple action allows the grass to breathe better. Remember, treating your lawn gently now, in January, is the key to ensuring it grows back quickly and vigorously in the spring. Item number 26 on our checklist might seem like it goes beyond typical gardening chores, but it's absolutely vital for the health of your landscape. We're talking about bird care. These feathered helpers aren't just pleasant to look at, they are your primary defense against garden pests. Winter, particularly January and February, is the toughest time for them, as natural food sources are almost non-existent. Why should a gardener bother feeding birds in the deep winter? Simple. The birds you feed now are highly likely to remain on your property come spring. Throughout the spring and summer, they will actively devour caterpillars, aphids, codling moths, and countless other destructive insects. A single family of titmice can clean pests off up to 40 fruit trees in one summer season. By helping them survive the lean winter months, you're essentially hiring a free, incredibly efficient, organic pest control service for your yard. How do you set up a successful feeding station? First, you need a proper feeder. It should have a roof to protect the seed from snow, and high sides or edges to prevent the food from being blown out by the wind. Position the feeder where it's sheltered from harsh winds and, crucially, inaccessible to neighbourhood cats, but also make sure it's easily visible from one of your windows so you can enjoy watching your feathered guests. Second, use the right type of food. The gold standard for most small birds like titmice, sparrows and nuthatches is unsalted, unroasted black oil, sunflower seeds. You can also mix in millet or oats. Titmice also love unsalted sweet or raw beef fat, which you can hang from branches in small cages. For specialised visitors like bullfinches and waxwings, setting aside dried rowan or hawthorn berries from the fall is excellent. What is the critical mistake to avoid? Never feed birds bread, especially rye bread, or salted, fried, spoiled, or processed scraps from your kitchen. A bird's delicate digestive system cannot handle these foods, and feeding them this way can easily lead to their death. Here is another crucial rule. Once you start feeding the birds, you must do it regularly, ideally every day. Birds quickly become reliant on the steady food source. If you suddenly stop feeding them, particularly during a severe cold snap, they may not be able to locate an alternate food source in time and could perish. Professional tip: in addition to the feeder, consider installing several nest boxes, such as bluebird or titmouse houses, around your property. Birds can use these boxes for safe overnight roosting during the winter and then utilise them for raising their young in the spring. Caring for birds is not just a kind gesture, it is a highly foresighted investment in the ecological balance and long-term health of your garden. Item number 27 on our winter garden checklist is inspecting the compost pile. Your fertility factory continues to work even in the winter, albeit at a slower pace. A January checkup is essential to ensure the composting processes are progressing correctly and to make any necessary adjustments. Why is this crucial? A properly managed compost pile should be cooking, meaning it heats up internally to high temperatures, ideally between 120 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, or 50 to 60 Celsius. This heat is what sterilizes the compost, killing weed seeds and disease pathogens. In winter, especially under snow cover, this process slows down but doesn't stop completely. Maintaining that activity is vital so you have a batch of ready-to-use, rich and crumbly compost by spring. What should you check? If your pile isn't covered by snow, that's not ideal. As we know, snow is an excellent insulator. It helps trap the heat inside the bin and prevents deep freezing. If snowfall has been light, make sure to pile snow up around the compost heap from all sides. This creates a powerful thermos effect. If you have the tools, try sticking a long metal rod deep into the centre of the pile. Pull it out after a while and feel it. If it's warm, your pile is active. If it's cold, the compost has likely frozen and gone dormant. To wake it up, you can pour hot water or a solution of microbial activators over it during a mild spell or thaw. What common winter practice can actually be detrimental? Dumping liquid waste or kitchen slops into the bin. In winter, this causes icing and restricts airflow, smothering the necessary aerobic process. It's better to stick to adding dry kitchen waste, things like peels and used tea leaves, layering them with peat moss, sawdust, or soil. This maintains the critical carbon to nitrogen balance. A pro tip: winter is the perfect time to build a new compost bin or structure. You can take your time selecting the location, gathering materials like lumber, corrugated sheeting, or wire mesh, and assembling the structure. An efficient compost system should ideally consist of 2 or 3 sections. In one, you add fresh organic matter. In the second, the compost matures, and from the third, you harvest the finished product. This system ensures a continuous supply of this valuable soil amendment. Paying attention to your compost heap in January is truly investing in the future fertility of your garden. Point number 28 isn't physical labour, it's analytical work. This step involves gathering and reviewing the data from your previous season. Before diving headfirst into planning the new growing year, it's crucial to look back and learn from your past successes and failures. Why do this? Human memory is notoriously imperfect. By spring, you might forget which tomato variety was the tastiest, or which one succumbed to blight. We often forget which garden bed was ravaged by the carrot fly, and whether harvest was perfect. Analysing your past experience is the most reliable way to avoid repeating mistakes and solidify successful strategies. If you kept a garden journal, as we've discussed, now is the perfect time to review it. If not, try to reconstruct the events from memory. What should we analyse? First, varieties. Make a complete list of everything you planted. Next to each variety, assign ratings for different metrics: germination rate, yield, flavour, and disease resistance. Highlight the varieties that performed excellently and those that disappointed you. This detailed review will form the foundation of your seed inventory for the coming year. Second, cultivation techniques. Think back to the specific methods you used. What produced good results? Perhaps you tried mulching for the first time and were thrilled with the outcome. Or maybe you introduced a new organic treatment that successfully managed aphids. Make a note of these wins. Conversely, recall the failures. Why did your pepper seedlings die? Why was your cabbage harvest poor? Try to pinpoint the exact cause. Maybe the planting density was too high, or perhaps there wasn't enough watering or fertilizing. Third, pests and diseases. Mark on your garden plan exactly where and what problems occurred. This information will help you schedule preventative treatments and choose appropriate companion planting for the next season. A common mistake is blaming all poor results solely on bad weather. Weather is certainly a factor, but more often, the root cause lies in our own cultivation errors. Honest self-assessment is the key to mastering your craft. Professional tip: use photos. If you took pictures of your garden throughout the season, review them now. Photos can significantly jog your memory and provide a visual record of how your plants developed and how disease symptoms manifested. This January debriefing is essential corrective work that guarantees every new season will be better than the last. Our second to last tip, number 29 in this series, brings us back to tree protection. We've already covered rodents, but there is another major winter threat: frost cracks and sun scald. These are serious injuries that can significantly weaken a tree or even kill it. So why do these problems emerge in late winter? In February and early March, or even January in warmer regions, the dark bark, especially on the south and southwest sides of the trunk, absorbs bright sunlight and heats up well above freezing. This temperature rise wakes up the cambium cells, starting the sap flow. Then, when the temperature plummets at night, This liquid freezes inside the tissues, literally tearing them apart. The result is vertical cracks and peeling bark. These are the frost cracks. These open wounds are essentially an invitation for shelf, fungi, spores, and other infections to enter. What's the best way to prevent this? The most effective method is whitewashing the trunks and major scaffold branches in the fall. The white colour reflects the sun's rays, preventing the bark from overheating and minimising the drastic daily temperature swings. If you missed painting your trees in the fall, trying to do it now, in sub-zero temperatures, is pointless. The paint will just freeze. However, you can use other methods. For example, you can wrap the trunks in white non-woven material, burlap, or even several layers of newspaper. This achieves the same goal of protecting the bark from overheating. Alternatively, you can simply install a wooden board or a shield on the south side of the trunk to create shade. If you do discover a fresh frost crack, you must treat it in the spring as soon as stable above freezing temperatures arrive. Clean the wound down to the healthy tissue, disinfect it with a copper sulfate solution, and then cover it using tree wound dressing or a specialised horticultural sealant. A common mistake is whitewashing trees only for appearance, painting just the very base. Whitewashing is, first and foremost, functional protection. You need to paint the entire trunk, from the ground up to the first scaffold branches, as well as the base of those main branches. This is especially crucial for young trees with smooth, thin bark. Pro tip: when choosing your whitewash, select products that contain not just lime or chalk, but also fungicidal additives for disease protection, along with sticky bonding agents for better adhesion. Preventing frost cracks in late winter is essential for the long-term health and longevity of your orchard. And finally, the 30th and concluding point on our list. This one is the most enjoyable and perhaps the most crucial. It's time to dream and get inspired. After tackling all those practical and analytical tasks, we need to let our imagination run wild and visualize the garden of our dreams. Why is this so important? Gardening isn't just hard work. It's first and foremost a creative outlet and a source of joy. When you have a clear, inspiring vision of what you want to create, every chore becomes easier and more meaningful. That dream is the engine that will power you through the entire season. And January, with its quiet, slightly magical atmosphere, is the perfect time for it. What should you do? Flip through some beautiful landscaping magazines. Look at garden photos online, especially on Pinterest. Save all the ideas that catch your eye. Maybe you want to design a new flower border using a specific colour palette. Or perhaps create a cosy seating area, complete with a rose-covered pergola. Or have you always dreamt of adding a small pond or a rock garden? Now is the time to plan it all out. Sketch out your designs and select plants that suit both your vision and your climate. Don't just focus on the vegetable patch. Think about beauty. After all, your garden should be a delight to look at from early spring right through late autumn. Plan for continuous bloom. Choose plants so that as one finishes flowering, the next is ready to pick up the baton. Think about ornamental shrubs that offer beauty, not just through flowers but also through their shape, colourful foliage, or fall colour. A common mistake is trying to copy a picture from a magazine without adapting it to your local conditions. A lush rose garden from southern England is unlikely to look the same in a much colder climate. Be realistic. Take the inspiration, but populate it with plants that genuinely thrive in your specific region. Here's a professional tip. Create a mood board. This could be a physical cork board where you pin magazine clippings, favourite seed packets, or material swatches. Or it could be a virtual board on Pinterest. This visualization tool will help you solidify your dream and keep you on track during implementation. January dreams are not mere fantasies. They are the emotional bedrock for your future garden, one that will be not only productive, but also beautiful, cozy, and truly loved. And just like that, we've covered everything, from vital snow management to dreaming up your perfect garden. 30 essential tasks. It sounds like a huge list, but if you spread these tasks out over the entire month, they become manageable, enjoyable, and unhurried activities. The most important takeaway is this: January is not the time for the gardener's long winter nap. It is a period for quiet contemplation, strategic planning, and crucial groundwork. It's in the quiet of the winter garden that we lay the crucial groundwork for future growth and bounty. Every protected tree, every verified seed, every sharpened pair of pruners, that is your direct investment in future success. By completing these seemingly simple tasks, you are not just preparing for the season. You are actively managing your garden's future, solving problems long before they even have a chance to appear. Thank you so much for sticking with us and watching this long, but hopefully very useful, video all the way through. If you enjoyed this guide and found it helpful, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next videos. Now, a question for all of you, fellow gardeners. Which January task do you find the most critical? And which one do you often put off until the last minute? Share your experience and thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss. See you next time in the garden.